payment to its massive debt to the Philippine Red Cross. Speaking with 1PH sa Totoo Lang, Philhealth spokesperson Ray Baliana confirmed that the state insurer has paid 3.5 billion pesos to the PRC as of January 20. Baliana added that Philhealth is also slated to pay another 100 million pesos this week, which will further decrease their unpaid balance to around 300 million pesos.
Pero tandaan po natin, sa bilis po, no? Sa bilis ng Red Cross sa kanila pong pagtitest at pagsasubmit po sa atin, ay talaga pong magpa-pile up po yan. Ano ho? At alam niyo, medyo mahina ang kalaban sapagkat voluminous po ang claims na kanilang sinasubmit at kailangan po natin niyang tiyakin isa-isa na yan po ay in order.
Meanwhile, Baliana denies that Philhealth's 15 billion peso fund is still missing. In fact, the official said that the entire amount has already been distributed to partner hospitals. Baliana also said that they are leaving all matters to the probe of the Ombudsman while they focus on liquidating the so-called missing funds.
Bago pa ang pamumuno ni Atty. Giran noong September, ay nagsimula na rin naman po ang liquidation ng mga ospital. Ano? At the rate things are going, mga 3-4% ang nadadagdag na liquidation kada linggo. So siguro mga kalahatian ng February o bago matapos ng February, may ulat na natin na ganap na ito ay 100% liquidated, accounted for.
The Philippines has filed a diplomatic protest against China's new law, which authorizes its Coast Guard to fire at what they perceive as foreign vessels. After saying that it was, quote, none of our business, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Locsin reconsidered and filed a diplomatic protest. Beijing's new bill, which takes effect on February 2, allows the Chinese Coast Guard to demolish structures of other countries on Chinese-claimed reefs. UP Institute of Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea Director J. Batumbakal says that on its face, the Chinese law should be a non-issue for countries other than China. But drawing on China's past actions, Batumbakal says it's a logical conclusion that Beijing will use this new law even on territories with other rightful claimants like the West Philippine Sea. The law professor says a diplomatic protest would suffice for now, but warned that we might need to link arms with other countries in the region if China does exercise its military power in our territory.
A diplomatic protest is the only thing you can do short of actual hostilities at this point, no?
Yes.
Because hostilities is the next step. And we are not going to start that. No, we have a constitutional policy against using war, no, as an instrument of national policy. So we cannot be the one to initiate that. What we can do is essentially invoke self-defense if China does carry out that threat against us, basically.
A former Supreme Court justice and one of the framers of the 1987 Constitution agreed that charter change could pave the way for widespread corruption at the hands of self-serving lawmakers. Marian Enriquez has the report.
It was the Senate's turn to tackle charter change. The Senate Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Economic Affairs wants to determine whether amendments are needed in the time of the pandemic and its blow to the economy. A framer of the 1987 Constitution believes it's unnecessary. Attorney Christian Munsod says the push for Chacha, similar to previous attempts, is for self-serving means.
The real motive is profit. RBA 2, page 2 is dangerous and devious because it's a wholesale transfer of power from the Constitution to the Congress on determining the limitations of foreign ownership of land, natural resources, public utilities, media, advertising, educational institutions.
According to Munsod, adding the phrase unless otherwise provided by law renders constitutional provisions meaningless and opens the door wider to corruption.
RBH2 is a new and bigger source of illicit money than the pork barrel. Look at it this way. Once the insidious insertion is accomplished, our legislators can go to rich foreign land developers or mining companies and ask, by how much do you wish to increase your ownership of land?
Munsod says amending the charter won't likely boost foreign direct investments. The country's FDI bucked a global downturn, rising by almost a third in 2020, according to preliminary estimates. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development says FDI inflows climbed 29% to $6.4 billion last year from $5 billion in 2019. Former Supreme Court Associate Justice Vicente Mendoza also says that a constitutional body, whether a CONCON or CONAS, attains a life of its own, meaning it may veer away from plans of just amending economic provisions.
The possibility of a runaway CONCON or CONAS for that matter is always there, especially at a time like this when it is only 15 months away from the next election.
Senator Richard Gordon believes it's wrong timing to push Chacha.
I'm not in favor of amending the Constitution at this time, principally because we need to focus on many things that we need to do. Not just the pandemic, we can handle the pandemic and amend the Constitution, but if you like, it will be very divisive, or it could be lead to other things.
One Constitution framer, however, supports charter change, but stressed the need for cautiously enacting amendments.
It is very important when you tinker with the Constitution to tinker knowledgeably, Mr. Chairman, and to know where to put this very important provision unless otherwise provided by law.
The Senate panel is set to convene again to tackle procedural aspects of amending the charter. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
The IATF is set to recommend the extension of NCR's general community quarantine status until next month. Though some Metro Manila mayors are backing this move due to the threat of the new COVID-19 variant, others have actually warned at the idea of easing restrictions in the metro to modify GCQ. Jenny Dongon with the story.
Metro Manila's GCQ status is supposed to expire on Sunday. Should quarantine in the capital be eased to modify general community quarantine, Taguig City says it's more than ready. This is because, according to Mayor Lino Cayetano, the city is doing enough testing and it has enough quarantine facilities. But he says it all depends on how the rest of NCR mayors will vote.
Ang katotohanan, mismong mga kababayan ko may nagtatrabaho sa labas ng Taguig at maraming mga nasa labas ng Taguig nagtatrabaho sa Metro Manila. And the truth is, it's not confined to Taguig or Metro Manila alone.
MMDA General Manager Jojo Garcia says some Metro Manila mayors are open to the transition, but the focus for now is on vaccines.
Nandito na yung vaccines natin, no? Malapit na. Ayaw naman natin magkaroon ng surge at tapos nag-aasikaso tayo ng vaccine. Napakahirap yan. So sabi ko nga sa ngayon, maganda yung numero. If they're going to make it a status quo, meaning GCQ sa Feb, welcome sa amin yan. Kung i-open ng konti, gagawing MGCQ, okay din yan, no, sa mga mayors.
But for the business sector, now is the right time to ease classifications as long as protocol are strictly followed. Philippine Chamber of Commerce President George Barcelon says they don't want the country's economy to be on another COVID coma.
This would inject more economy. So I'm all for it. So yung mga sa private sector, talaga naman we're very strict also in following the protocol.
Businesses are confident that with the testing and tracing capacity of both the national and local governments, Metro Manila can prevent the further spread of COVID-19.
Ito mga district, to be honest, I'm hoping that there will be a move towards that direction. I'd like to repeat, para mawala yung takot natin. Mahirap yung we're naging paralyzed tayo sa takot natin sa COVID, and then we're not moving, and the economy will die.
But Health Secretary Francisco Duque confirms the national recommendation of the Interagency Task Force for the quarantine classification in Metro Manila.
Secretary, hindi nyo nabanggit kami Mayor Lino na until February, yung decision for GCQ until end of February. Is this the final recommendation of the IATF?
Well, for NCR, this is the final recommendation beginning February 1 to the 28th.
President Duterte is expected to announce the new community quarantine status to be implemented in parts of the country by month end. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, we are One News.
We have some breaking news. The country's GDP shrinks by 9.5% in 2020 and by 8.3% in the fourth quarter of last year. The PSA is currently conducting a press briefing on this data. Let's listen in.
7%. Meanwhile, government final consumption expenditure and intellectual property products posted positive growth rates during the fourth quarter of 2020 with 4.4% and 1.3% respectively. For the whole year of 2020, on the demand side, valuables posted the largest contraction with 43.1%, followed by durable equipment with negative 31.3%, construction with negative 29.7%, and exports of services with negative 25.5%. Meanwhile, government final consumption expenditure posted positive growth of 10.4% for the whole year of 2020. In the fourth quarter of 2020, major contributors to the decline from the expenditure side were construction with negative 5.9 percentage points, followed by household final consumption expenditure with negative 5.4 percentage points, and durable equipment with negative 1.7 percentage points. On the other hand, major positive contributors to the GDP growth for the fourth quarter of 2020 were net exports with 4.4 percentage points, government final consumption expenditure with 0.5 percentage point, and intellectual property products with 0.01 percentage point. On an annual basis, major contributors to the decline in the GDP growth from the expenditure side for 2020 were household final consumption expenditure with negative 5.7 percentage points, construction with negative 4.9 percentage points, and durable equipment with negative 2.3 percentage points. On the other hand, major positive contributors to the GDP growth in 2020 were net exports with 3.9 percentage points and government final consumption expenditure with 1.3 percentage points. The Philippine Statistics Authority appreciates your presence in this fourth quarter 2020 National Accounts Press Conference. We look forward to meeting you again on 11th May 2021 when we report the performance of the Philippine economy for the first quarter of 2021. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Mapa, for your informative report. Next, to deliver the joint statement of the Duterte administration's economic managers on the Philippine economic performance for the fourth quarter and full year 2020, we have Acting Socioeconomic Planning Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua of the National Economic...
That was the PSA's press briefing on the country's GDP growth. Our correspondent Shaila Francisco is monitoring these developments. We'll get more details from her later today. The World Health Organization allays public fear about COVID-19 vaccines possibly losing their effectiveness against new mutations. WHO Emergencies Chief Mike Ryan said it should be possible for vaccines to adapt quickly against new COVID-19 strains. Citing the influenza shot, Ryan says developers can change the vaccine's composition twice a year to combat predominant strains. Ryan notes that even if the virus evolves to a point where vaccines begin to lose effectiveness, vaccine manufacturers and health authorities can quickly adapt. The WHO official even used a sport analogy to emphasize his point.
Imagine we're in the second half of the game. We've finished the year, and the opposition has just introduced a substitute or some replacements on the other side. Do we throw our game plan out the window and start all over again? Or do we look at our game plan, look at the behavior of the other team and adjust and adapt what we need to adapt and move on? And teams that win are the teams that are able to not panic when the other team makes a change.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 1 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. We are One News.